Farm Talk on CFRU 93.3 FM. Welcome to another edition of Food Farm Talk, where we celebrate food and honor those who champion the cause of food in society. Hello, welcome to another episode of Food Farm Talk on CFRU and on all our podcast platform. I am your regular host, Abdurrahim Abdullahi, and today marks the beginning of the Nutrition Month in Canada. And I have the privilege to talk to Katherine Eckert, who is a Ph.D. student in the Applied Nutrition program here at the University of Guelph. She's going to tell me a little bit about research and some cool project she has been working on, which will be launching sometime within this Nutrition Month. So, Katherine, we are very happy to have you on this program. I've already said a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Abdul. So thanks so much for having me here. As you said, my name is Katherine Eckert, and I'm a registered dietitian and a Ph.D. student in applied human nutrition. And I'm working with the Guelph Family Health Study and the Arrell Food Institute at the University of Guelph. So a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in a rural community in Newfoundland, and I actually completed my education on the east coast of Canada. So I did my undergraduate degree in nutrition at Acadia University, and then my Master's of Science in Community Health and Epidemiology at Dalhousie University. And currently I'm living in Guelph with my wife and our corgi dog.
Wow. So you've been from one end of Canada to the other end. Quite fascinating. But I must say that looking at your background, you've been doing a lot more on health, and of course now you are doing Ph.D. in nutrition, which is still a part of health. Can you tell us a little bit about your research that you are doing here at the University of Guelph?
Yeah, for sure. So my research focuses on strategies or on interventions to promote sustainable diets. And sustainable diets often incorporate more plant-based proteins, which are foods that contain protein that comes from plants instead of from animals. So examples of plant-based proteins that you might be familiar with are foods like nuts or seeds, tofu, quinoa, or peas and beans. And plant-based proteins have been found to be associated with health benefits as well as environmental benefits. So there's many different factors that influence what we eat, and it could range from influences like the cost of food to how much time we have, our kind of cooking or food skills, and the availability or accessibility of food in the areas that we live in. So for example, coming from Newfoundland, there wasn't always access to like a large range of ingredients and foods that you might find in like larger city centers. So I'm interested in looking at how factors across different levels of society affect what we eat and our plant-based intake. So factors that could affect our eating may be more individual kind of factors like food skills or our own personal tastes, or it could be broader factors that aren't always in, our individual's control. So for example, influences like the food environment, say, that we live in, or in systemic food policies.
That's quite interesting. Of course, sustainable diet has been on the agenda in the last couple of years. And in the last few years, we've been hearing a lot about, plant-based foods. And it's quite interesting to see that like people are really working on to, bring that conversation into the food space. And then so really, it will really be good to see how like things go in terms of moving forward. And it's interesting, which kind of ties to some of the work you are doing, because I've heard that you've been doing some very cool projects aside your main research that's been trying to kind of drive the conversation around sustainable diets. And I would like us to talk a little bit about that work that you have been doing. Can you tell us a little bit about your work on plant-based cookbook? I mean, generally, what is that project about?
Yeah, for sure. So I can give you an idea of my own kind of research studies, as well as the plant-based cookbook project that I've been working on over the past few years. So a few different studies that I'm working on right now. that I'm leading, one is looking at child's diets before and after the release of the 2019 Canada's Food Guide. So in the 2019 dietary guidelines, they made an emphasis on eating more plant-based foods. So we hope to figure out whether kids' diets have changed to align with these recommendations. And then another study I'm collaborating on is one that examines social media comments from news articles that are posted about plant-based eating. So in this study, we hope to find out what the public thinks of plant-based proteins. And really, we're hoping to ultimately identify factors that may, help or hinder plant-based eating. And then finally, the cookbook. So that's one a really cool project that I've been working on over the past few years. It's called Plant-Based Proteins, Recipes Made Easy-Peasy. So a bit of a play on words. And this is a free online cookbook. It was created through a collaboration between the Guelph Family Health Study with Health Canada, the Helderly Foundation, George Brown College, the Ontario government, the Canadian Nutrition Society, and the City of Guelph. So lots of collaboration with.
There's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts to that puzzle. That must be very fascinating to have like very different group of entities, organizations who, in their own ways, like work within that space, coming together to produce something like this. So let's go to talk a little bit more about that project.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it was a really exciting collaboration and really nice to get to work with different stakeholders. So the first section of the cookbook features more so like educational information about plant-based proteins. And then in the second half of the cookbook is where we have our recipes, which includes breakfast recipes, soups and salads, mains, and snacks. So the overall goal of the cookbook is to introduce families to plant-based recipes that are healthy and delicious to promote healthy and sustainable eating. And I should say that not all of the recipes are solely plant-based. So some have plant foods only, and then others have meat as well. And we chose to do this because we really wanted there to be something for everyone in the cookbook. We're not advocating for, a vegan diet. So whether you're someone who really enjoys meat or someone who eats a plant-based diet already, we wanted there to be some recipes that you would enjoy.
Yeah, so kind of keeping it very realistic, like within the country
Yeah,
that we live in. We can't basically say everybody should go plant-based. So it's good
exactly.
to see that even within the frame of talking about plant-based eating, we still have space to incorporate, animal products, such that like people don't feel excluded, right? So
Exactly.
talking about this project or about this cookbook, I know there are various components to it. I do know that part of it talks about sustainable diets, and there's one that is more on the plant-based cookbook itself. Then we have
Yeah.
educational tools, and then we have the recipes. Let's start from the sustainable diets. Like, what is it about sustainable diets that this project actually looks at?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like you said in the first section of the cookbook is the educational information and tools. So we really wanted to provide evidence-based information about plant-based proteins. So in that first section, we talk about what are plant-based and animal-based proteins, and then we go over shopping and preparation tips for each. And then we go over the benefits of plant-based eating and actually provide an ingredient showcase. So you can actually see what the different plant-based proteins and ingredients actually look like. And we also discuss ways to incorporate plant-based proteins into your diet using, simple swaps and just small steps to help increase your intake. So one example, I guess, is one tip that we discuss is if you tend to use ground beef in your recipes, like in pasta recipes or chili, you can actually add a small amount of lentils or beans to add an extra kind of boost of nutrition and flavor to your meal.
Yeah, really, that's really good. So it's just about what people are already doing, but adding a twist to it by suggesting things that are plant-based elements you can actually add to it. And I know
Yeah.
the second part is actually like the plant-based cookbook itself, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the cookbook. How different is this cookbook from, like, of course, the thousands of cookbooks that we already have in existence, right? How different is this cookbook and what is special about it?
Yeah, so we have really great recipes from kind of breakfast and snacks, mains and desserts, and then in combination with the educational tools for kind of preparation and shopping tips, they kind of all align and go together to kind of really facilitate that process of adding more plant-based proteins to your diet. So we're not looking at removing anything. We really want to add nutrition, add flavor, kind of add to environmental sustainability, like in a broad sense. So I think that's kind of what's really unique about the cookbook. I think, the recipes are not really overly complex. So they take well-known dishes and then they just really elevate them using plant-based proteins.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, of course, look, for hearing what you are saying, so again, it's trying to move us a little bit away from the we versus them, right?
Yeah,
We the plant based
exactly.
versus they the animal, based diets. So, which is good, like because we always say that in agri there should be room for everybody, right? There should be room to
Yeah,
incorporate everybody. It is not always about I am right, you are wrong. We should find a common space where we can be able to integrate that different diversity within that space, right?
exactly.
So that being said, I know the other part of that project is actually the educational tool. Definitely, that educational tool basically will touch on some of these issues that we are talking about. Can you elaborate more on the educational aspect of the project?
Yeah. So as I said, we did use evidence-based information to design all of the educational tools. So one really cool part that I think is really useful is we have a table with different animal-based proteins. So we say, like, if you typically like to cook with this animal-based protein, you can add in or swap part of that meal with this plant-based protein. And then we also link it in another column to recipes that it might commonly be used in. And then they link with the recipes that we present in the cookbook. So we say, for example, you can check out this recipe within the cookbook. So that's, I guess, an example of one of the educational tools that I think is really, really practical for people.
Wow. Probably after this program, we'll go and look for it. But
That's great.
as we have been discussing, we keep mentioning
Yeah.
recipes. I don't know if it will be something of like giving away, but I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about, some of the cool recipes that you have. Maybe
Yeah,
just one or two recipes,
for sure.
so that we just give it as a bonus to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So I can tell you maybe my favorite recipes that
Cool.
I've tried. So I really like there's a lentil bolognese, like a pasta recipe, and a beef and bean burger that I'm really fond of.
Hmm.
And I'll give you two more because it's hard to pick. So I really like a turkey chili as well, and a shepherd's pie that incorporates lentils.
Wow.
So I really love all of those. And as you can probably guess, I'm a big fan of like comforting and filling meals, especially this time of year over the winter months.
Yeah.
They're really cozy and healthy and delicious. Yeah, so those would probably be my favorites.
That's kind of really nice, and I'm sure most of our listeners will also find some very like good recipes within the cookbook. So,
Yeah,
that being said, uh, I just want us to talk a little bit more about your general experience, working on this project, coming
yeah,
out with this fascinating project, coming out with this great recipes, educational tools, and
yeah,
educational aspect for people.
yeah.
What has your experience been in terms of just even interacting with the community of, say, academics or even like the general public? Because I know with projects like this, you definitely have interactions with the public to actually make inputs into it. What has been your general experience with the public and with like within the space, more educational, space in terms of coming out with this project?
Yeah, so I think it's been a really great experience overall, getting to connect, with different stakeholders to create the cookbook. There's a lot of different, coordination, and it was really fun to kind of work together to see different perspectives when we were developing it. One really cool aspect was when we worked with George Brown College. So there's a culinary school, and they're really amazing there. So they got to kind of make their recipes in their kitchen and take all the photographs by the recipes. So that was really cool. One really cool aspect. In terms of with the public, at the Guelph Family Health Study, we do have a family council. So it's basically a representation of members of the study that we discuss, different aspects of different studies and projects that we're working on to hear their feedback. So we did consult with them as we were developing the cookbook to say, do you think this would be useful and practical for families? What do you think of this recipe or this idea? And so that was really great as well. And I think one of the great advantages of consulting with people is that you can hear their feedback to improve your project. Yeah.
Were there challenges for you?
Yeah, yeah.
If yes, what were they?
For sure. Yeah. I think, anytime you're part of a really big team, sometimes and I think, everyone's working on probably multiple different projects. So this was over a few years actually that we, had the idea for the cookbook and got to the point of actually, developing the cookbook and the recipes and all of that. So I would say overall it was a really positive experience in the collaboration, but at times it can be challenging as well to kind of collaborate on a diverse team. But ultimately in the end, I think it's worth it.
So that's really fascinating. I'm just imagining going through all those experiences and then having to deal with that diverse group of stakeholders in a project like this. I'm sure that would have been probably a very satisfying experience for you, I can imagine. So now let's try to shift gears a little bit because we are in nutrition month, right? Not many people, of course, unless you are in the food space, are actually really aware of this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition month. What is nutrition month in a more general sense? And then we will talk a little bit about what people should expect within that month, from your space and from other spaces that you are aware of. So what is nutrition month?
Yeah, for sure. So Nutrition Month really is a month where we kind of focus on nutrition and the role of maybe dietitians. So really about, collaborating and communicating on nutrition with the public. So there's often different activities on the go in communities. So for example, activities for the cookbook launch that we're doing during Nutrition Month. We're also doing an interview about plant-based proteins in the new cookbook on the Healthy Habits, Happy Homes podcast. Then that will be released on, or has been released on March 1st. And you can find that podcast on the Guelph Family Health Study website, as well as on Apple Podcasts. Okay. And we also have been working on articles that will be published in both French and English in the Conversation Canada in March. Yeah, so
look out for that.
Yeah, stay tuned for those pieces as well. Lastly, you can always visit the Guelph Family Health Study website for access to any of our free online cookbooks, as well as to learn about the cool research that we're doing.
Okay. Within the month of March, which is of course the nutrition month, is there something in particular you are really looking forward to?
Yeah. I mean, this interview was one of the activities that I was really looking forward to, and just kind of, I think, seeing more people become aware of the cookbook. I'm really hoping that we see a lot of downloads from our website. I really hope that people enjoy the cookbook. So I'm really looking forward to hearing feedback on that. Yeah, so I think that would be what I'm looking forward to the most.
So beyond Nutrition Month, what do you generally think that we can do in order to, keep the momentum around, sustainable diets?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, in our everyday lives, something that I try to do, when I'm talking to friends or family, if the topic comes up, share your experience. So if you do download the cookbook and you really enjoy a recipe, share it with someone. So I think that's something that kind of anyone can do, and that really helps. We're also going to be distributing recipe cards in elementary schools, childcare centers, and libraries during Nutrition Month, so over the month of March. And they're going to feature recipes from the plant-based cookbook that you can try at home. So if you want to share recipe cards with family or friends, you can do that as well.
Yeah, so our listeners out there, they should be looking out for some kind of recipe cards within this month. To be coming your way, mostly through schools, right?
Yes. Schools, kind of childcare centers, and then also public libraries.
Public libraries. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Are they like all public libraries, or are they specific public libraries you're actually looking to?
That's a really great question. I'm not 100% sure on that, and I'm not sure the exact date that I'm not sure if we have a date set that we're going to be giving them out. But during the month of March, if you're in a public library in Guelph, definitely keep your eye out for them. Yeah.
Do you have a very general message like to the public in terms of more like sustainable diets, right? I know you've been working in that space for some time. Of course, there are always a lot of controversies when it comes to topics like this.
For
What
sure.
general message do you have for the public in around Gulf and even, of course, global in
Yeah.
regards to sustainable diets?
So I think, okay, I'll borrow a quote from Michael Pollan because I think he sums up the research really well in his book called In Defense of Food when he says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And I know that's really general, but I think that's really good advice.
So mostly plants, not all plant, mostly plant. Yeah, so
Exactly.
that's important, right? So,
Yes, very
and
important.
and I think that that's basically one of the key themes in the work that you have been doing is trying to move away from the
Black and
idea
white.
of
Yeah,
black and white, right? So kind of a mixture of black and white. Somewhere gray, there's always a gray area, right?
exactly. I'm a big
So
fan of the gray
yeah, the
area.
gray area. I think the gray area is actually a good area where most people can actually meet, and form an understanding, rather than
Yeah,
each person standing in like whether in a black or in a white area, which is good. So we are basically probably running out of time. But what we'll do is I want you to kind of summarize our conversation for us. I want you to have a last message. Tell people about maybe in one word, one sentence, your
Mhm.
work in one sentence about nutrition month. In one sentence, direct people to resources about where they can actually find, of course, the cookbook and a lot of information about the project and how they can actually engage in conversations within the nutrition month. That's too much of an ask, but I know you can do it.
I'm not sure if it'll be quite in one sentence,
No,
but
no,
I'll
not
do
in
my
one
best.
sentence. Maybe one
Okay,
sentence for each. One sentence
okay.
for your project, one sentence for the nutrition month, and maybe a couple of sentences to direct people to resources.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of resources, you can visit the Guelph Family Health Study website for access to our free online cookbooks, and you can download the cookbooks there. You can also check out the research that we're doing. And then I think in terms of plant-based eating and plant-based research, eating plant-based foods is associated with health benefits and environmental benefits. Yeah, so it's worth, I guess, checking out the resources, and I think it's about doing your best as an individual, and that's going to look different for everyone. So kind of like you said, living in that gray area.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the word that that's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah,
Because we all have our unique ways that we engage with food. And of course,
exactly.
our conversation today has been centered around that unique, experience, so that we don't have to have very isolated cases. You can make your own ways in how you engage with food. Uh, if there's one thing I'm taking out of today's conversation, we probably need to encourage to bring more people into the gray area between the white and the black when it comes to diets, so that
Exactly.
we were able to get so many people to understand that it is not always me or you, like me, right? So we can have that understanding. We can have an understanding in terms of diet. And to our listeners who are listening to us today, thank you for joining us. And what we can take out of today is that plant-based diets are good in a general sense, but probably we won't say it's an exclusive way to, it's an exclusive right to eat. Like you can still eat your meat, but you can kind of incorporate plant-based options into your diet. Am I right?
Yeah, that's a great summary. Thank you.
I
And
got
thanks
it
so
right.
much for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, Kat, for actually
Thank
coming
you.
on. And I'm sure our listeners will be very happy to listen to this. And if you have any further questions about this, you can always go to the resources that were provided, or you can reach out to Kat as well. If you reach out to me, I'll connect you to Kat. Thank you very
That's great.
much, Kat, for this.
Thank you.
Thank you to our listeners again. It's been another great episode of Food Farm Talk on CFRU and on all our podcast platform. Until we meet again next time for another episode, thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you for listening to Food Farm Talk. See you next week for another exciting edition.